Hey, everybody, it's Ryan. Thanks for downloading today's show. And just a reminder, as always, Wake Up War Chant is brought to you by our friends at For the Table, Madison Social, Central and Township, in the heart of College Town. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, from Tallahassee to Thomasville and from coast to Atlantic coast, it's time to Wake Up War Chant here on 97.9 ESPN Radio, and it's a very happy Friday, September 1st to you and yours. You're currently listening to the voice of Ryan Kelly. I'm the director of digital media at warchant.com. Drew's not on the other side of the glass just yet. He's going to join us in a little bit. I'll be completely upfront with you. This is a pre-recorded show just due to some travel concerns with Atlanta and stuff like that. But listen, even though we've got ourselves a pre-recorded show, we have a loaded show for you today. Gene Williams is going to join us in the studio for a good lion's share of this show. We're going to play our over-unders. We're going to do the triumphant return of Lucky 7 later on, make our picks for this weekend. In just about 60 seconds or so, Tony Tsoukalas, a Bama insider, is going to join us, give us the Bama perspective, give us the injuries, give us what's going on their front. So that being said, we don't have a lot of time. I'll give you the quick spiel. Thanks so much for waking up with us. Thanks, of course, for your support. Thanks for listening to the podcast, if that's how you do it. And we hope to see you over at the Georgia Freight Depot tonight, Atlanta Underground, doing a little pregame show. We're going to air that as a podcast tomorrow. So if you can make it out there, we hope you can. Of course, Gene's matchup analysis, the War Chant report, that's all coming out today. So stick with warchant.com. An extremely loaded show for an extremely loaded day. There's a lot of Alabama coverage coming for you in the next hour, including coverage from behind enemy lines in Tuscaloosa. And speaking of which, we welcome the beat writer from BamaInsider.com, Mr. Tony Tsoukalas, on the phone line. Tony, good to talk to you again, my friend.
Yeah, good to be on.
All right, so let's go ahead and get this over with. The thing that I know everybody wants to know about, it's Thursday. When we're recording this is Thursday, which means Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban have both put out kind of their injuries. What's the Tide looking like health-wise going into this game?
There's two questionable injuries. One comes on the defensive line, and Raekwon Davis, he shot in the leg outside of a Tuscaloosa bar early Sunday morning. That kind of sounds probably worse than maybe what the injury is. We saw Davis walk before practice. He was walking into practice. We haven't seen him in the media availability yet, but Saban has said, and he just said in his radio show, that Davis has practiced with the team, and so he said him and Josh Jacobs are both making progress every single day in practice, so that's encouraging. Jacobs, of course, had the hamstring issue that he's been dealing with for the last, probably last 2 weeks. He hasn't been practicing with the team during the media availability, but he's been there during individual drills. So it'll just be really interesting to see what Alabama does in those two positions. They obviously have a lot of depth at running back. So, if Jacobs can't go, then you have Damian Harris, Bo Scarborough, and Najee Harris. And then Brian Robinson's another freshman that they could plug in. Joshua Frazier looks to be the guy. He's a senior if Raekwon Davis can't go. Is a veteran. He appeared in, 14 games last season. So maybe not as flashy as Davis, but it could probably get the job done as well.
Moving on, taking a look at the Inside the Game page that you guys have done on Bama Insider. You guys do a matchup analysis kind of similar to us. Really good stuff here, but I think your first question kind of nails it on the head. And I know we've already recorded our part with Gene Williams, so our listeners will hear that in a little bit. But I think a lot of what Alabama's success and maybe Florida State's chance to win this game is going to come down to, how does Jalen Hurts look? How does he throw the ball downfield? Can Florida State contain him running? Is it fair to say that a lot really rides on Bama's quarterback in this one for both sides? Yeah,
I think that if Florida State is able to limit him in the passing game, then they'll be able to stack the box, and that gives them a chance at stopping Alabama's running game. And if they can get Alabama off the field, similar to what Clemson did in the national championship game, Alabama could be in for a long night. That's how you beat Alabama. You make their defense play, time and time again, and by the end of them, maybe you can wear down that defense like they did in the Clemson game. And so that really would be the game plan, is to shut down Jalen early, maybe force him into a turnover. It's a big game for him. He's someone that doesn't lose his composure, but trying to get inside his head early, maybe with an interception, maybe have him second-guess himself kind of against his nature. But if they could do anything to rattle him at all at the beginning of the game, that could go a long way.
The time for talk is over. Fall camp's wrapped up. The first week of practice is wrapped up. Going into this game, put yourself in Nick Saban's shoes, Tony. What's the thing that you would feel most confident about, and what's the thing you would feel the least confident about?
Well, it's a good question. I think, Saban obviously knows the team a little bit more than I do. I would still be a little bit skeptical about how well Trayvon Diggs can perform at that cornerback spot. Alabama's secondary is going to be strong, and it's probably the strength of its defense. But if Florida State can pick on Diggs early and maybe they can find that weakness, hit Alabama on a few big plays, that could be really vital in this game. Where I feel the strongest is in the pass rush and in getting after DeAndre Francois. I think that's one of the bigger mismatches in this game is Alabama's defensive line against Florida's offensive line. So that's something that I think that they'll look to take advantage of and kind of make life miserable for Francois.
And I saw that in your matchup analysis, and I'm not here to start a big, long debate. I know we don't have a ton of time, but you ended up giving the quarterback edge to Alabama in this game, even though DeAndre Francois maybe was a little bit more consistent in his freshman campaign. But was that a big reason why, the offensive line?
Yeah, I think just what Hurts has working with him, with the protection he has, I think he will ultimately have the better game. And Hurts is not no slouch himself either, like you said. So that one's one of the closer battles. I gave that to Alabama more because of the weapons and what I think the time in the pocket that Hurts will have compared to what DeAndre Francois has.
Fair enough. All right, so we've got a couple minutes more. Your big keys to the game. I always ask if we ever preview somebody or any game, here's the three questions I ask to close an interview. Alabama wins if, Alabama loses if, and then your prediction for the game.
Alabama wins if they can pass the ball early and open up the running game for their running back. If Jalen can hit on some of these big passes early, maybe just keep Florida State's defense honest. The stable of running backs, with or without Josh Jacobs, should be enough to wear down Florida State's defense. I think Alabama loses if they make some big turnovers early, give Florida State some momentum, and then probably have to scramble a little bit in the game. Alabama's got some new people coming in on defense. If you spot Florida State 14 points to start, I think that could really cause some chaos and could really be detrimental. And what was the third question? I'm sorry.
How do you see it shaking out?
I have 31-20 Alabama. I think it's going to be a close game for much of it. I think it's probably going to be an uglier game than people are probably hoping for. It's still the first game. It's two great teams. It's two teams that could very well play again in the college football playoff, but there will be some mistakes on both sides. So yeah, I think it'll be a good game. I don't think it'll be a great game, but I'm looking forward to it.
And I think the thing is, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. This is going to be an interesting game because it's two offenses with question marks here and there, and two front sevens that are really, really good. I have it 27-24. I'm leaning towards Alabama, but I honestly think it could probably go either way there. I think it's within that spread, but you just look at that score and you look at those fronts of those defenses, and you kind of think to yourself, both of these offenses could struggle, especially early.
Definitely. These are two of the best defenses in college football, two amazing secondaries, two really good defensive lines. So, yeah, there's going to be some mistakes, in my opinion, on the offensive side of the ball. There's going to be some turnovers, and it's just really who can capitalize off of those.
Tony, thanks as always for your time, man. Always appreciate it. Hope to see you up there in Atlanta.
Yeah, see you there. Bye.
All right, folks, we got more. Gene Williams joins us in the studio after this. Wake Up War Chant, 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Out on the road, I've been down before. Riding along on this big old jet plane, I've been thinking about my home. But my love life seems so far away, and I feel like it's all been done.
Yes, Florida State just landed a 5-star commitment.
I don't see that anywhere online.
How did you get that news so fast?
I'm on the new warchant.com app. I get news updates and scores pushed to my phone instantly.
How much does it cost?
It's free. Just go to iTunes or the Google Play Store, type in Warchant, and install it on your phone. That's it.
A free app that keeps me constantly up to date on Florida State sports and recruiting? Wow, that makes it incredibly easy to follow my Seminoles and never miss out.
With the app, you'll also get quick access to all the stories and features on Warchant, including the ever-popular message boards that feature thousands of fans talking about the Noles.
Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole source.
What's with these homies dissing my girl? What do they got her from?
All right, welcome back to Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio, brought to you by your friends at For the Table, Madison Social, Central Township, all there in the heart of College Town. If you're not making your way up to Atlanta, that's a great place to be to watch that football game. 3 different places, all sorts of TVs. That sound's going to be pumped throughout. It's going to be a big party on Madison Street. So if you can't make it to the ATL, that's probably your best bet to go. Gene Williams joins us in the studio now. The boss man is with us. How's it going, my friend?
It's going well, and for full disclosure, I am not here at 6 a.m. or 6:30, whatever time this segment is going on. At this point, I'm in Atlanta, already prepping for the big game.
Yeah, I mean, as we told you up front, this is one, I guess, for travel concerns, we decided to knock this one out a little bit early, but still plenty of time to talk about this matchup, this game, the picks, and of course, Friday night, if you've got nothing to do and you're in Atlanta, why don't you come on by the it's the tailgate party, right? I want to make sure I get the pregame, yeah, because the tailgate party's Saturday and that's sold out.
Yeah.
But the pregame party on Friday, we're going to be doing a little pregame show, and that's going to be over at the Atlanta Freight Depot?
Georgia Freight Depot.
Or the Georgia
Freight what it's
Depot.
called. Yeah. You can look it up online or, War Chant, we got it pinned up there on the Tribal Council and check out the details. But, yeah, we're going to tape an actual pregame show, do a little bit more detailed breakdown. We've got – what's cool is they've got some former players there. We don't know which ones we're going to get, but we'll get a former player or two on the show. I know Brian McFadden's one of them, so we may get him on and some other guys. So it'll be great to get their perspective on this big game.
All right, so a little Johnny Carson for those of you who may not know. Football Fridays is when we do our matchup analysis, and we do that just about every single week. I'd hesitate to think that there will be one for ULM next week, but
I'll probably skip that one.
Yeah, but we do, as you know, like to break it down piece by piece, department by department of these games. And let's go ahead and break that down. Florida State's passing game, I think, is going to be a really interesting one to look at because nobody really knows what this offense is going to look like. We do know that you have a second-year quarterback who took a beating last year, has earned the respect of that locker room, and now has wide receivers that he got on the same page with towards the end of that season. They're not deep, but they are talented, much like the Alabama secondary. It's not deep, but it is talented. This, to me, is one of those matchups, as much as people are going to want to talk about the offensive line, as much as people are going to want to talk about the trenches, and you always are when you play a game against Alabama, this is a matchup that could make or break Florida State. Can DeAndre Francois out-duel Jalen Hurts? You certainly think he can, but can you deliver against that secondary and keep yourself turnover-free?
Well, if you go by history of last year, there were 3 pretty viable offenses they went against up with capable quarterbacks, and all 3 of those guys, whether that was Ole Miss, Arkansas, or Clemson, threw for 400 or more yards against that secondary. So obviously there is an opportunity to put up some points and put up some numbers through the air. But like you said, there's a question mark with the 3 wide receivers are going to be starting. We all think they're really good. We think it's a talent upgrade. But we've seen a little bit of what Nooney can do, a little bit Autumn. We don't know Keith Gavin, but I mean, of all the wide receivers, he had the most buzz of camp. We know Ryan Izzo is a commodity. I think he's going to be used a little bit in this game as well. And that was one of their concerns. You talked to the Alabama folks; they said, "Well, some problems in the secondary, but obviously they have Minka Fitzpatrick, one of the best cornerbacks, or I guess he's safety, one of the best in the country playing back there." So it's an interesting matchup. I actually thought Florida State had a slight edge overall if I look at it based on their vulnerability, but the reason I end up calling it even if you look at the matchup analysis on warchant.com that I did, I called it even because we have to go back again to that offensive line. I think if the line blocks, I think that they will be able to move the ball effectively and throw it effectively, but I just don't know if he's going to consistently have enough time to find those receivers.
I think it's fair to say that, but if all things are constant, let's say that he has an okay pocket. Let's say it's not great because it's not going to be great against Alabama. Let's just say that the line holds its own enough. I think you've got to give it to those wide receivers, even with, like you said, Fitzpatrick's really talented. That secondary is really good. But if I'm looking at a war of the quarterbacks in this, I mean,
if it's quarterback versus quarterback throwing the football, there's no competition. I think DeAndre, at the end of the year, I think he's been one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the country. I think when you look at this in his second year, and he's got the guys to throw to, and he's got 4 viable targets out there, so I think he could definitely do it again. It's repeated. How many times we mentioned on Wake Up War Chant and on War Chant, it's that offensive line that's the elephant in the room. And
speaking of which, as long as you're going to keep talking about this offense, this running game is going to look brand new without Dalvin Cook. Jacquez Patrick's looked really good throughout camp. He looks like he's slimmed down a little bit. He's obviously not a guy who's going to shy away from contact, and I think that's big news, obviously, when you play a team like Alabama. Because the fact that, sure, you're bringing in a new running back, but at the same time, he's had plenty of carries throughout his career. He doesn't shy away from contact, and if that offensive line is as iffy as we think it's going to be, you need a guy like that. You need a guy who's going to say, bring it on, get a couple yards after contact, and carry it.
I mean, they definitely have a wealth of riches. You lose Dalvin Cook, I mean, that's going to hurt you. You can't just put that aside. I mean, he's your all-time leading rusher at Florida State. You've got a lot of guys. You said Patrick's definitely a guy who doesn't mind pounding it. But you got to look at the other. It's not just one side. You got to look at Alabama. They were the number 1 team in the country against the run last year, surrendered only 64 yards a game. Now they got to replace 5 out of those front 7. And we know one of the guys still has the gunshot wound recovering from. He's day-to-day. We don't know what his status is going to be. But just when do you remember a Nick Saban team that wasn't dominant against the run? It's going to be really hard. And they play. That's what they do in the SEC. They play teams that try to pound the football on them. I think FSU can have some success, and I think a lot of that may be with DeAndre Francois running the football as opposed to trying to pound it between the tackles. But at the end of the day, you have to go with Alabama, give them the edge in this matchup.
And, Drew, I think that also goes to something that we were talking about a little bit earlier on in the week, and that's you've got to use the passing game. You have to use your superior passing game to Alabama's to open up that running. You have to make them respect it a little bit.
Yeah, I think you've seen in all the teams who have given Alabama issues over the last few years, the one thing they have in common is a quarterback who can stretch the field. And I think when you look back at Deshaun Watson and Chad Kelly, I mean, they threw for, I want to say like over 400 yards against them.
Yeah, they both did over 400. Even Arkansas's quarterback threw for 400 against them.
Right, so I think that's something that's going to be crucial. Obviously, you want to see guys like Jacquez and Cam and Rasul get touches, but at the end of the day, I think that's what it's really going to come down to.
That's the first and last time you'll ever hear Chad Kelly's name come up with Deshaun Watson's, and it perfectly makes sense in a point. Offensive line versus defensive line. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I think we all kind of know. This is the big question mark. This is where Florida State kind of seems to get a little hurt, and you kind of scratch your head a little bit. And this, as you already said, Gene, this is Nick Saban's bread and butter. His front 7 wins games. This is what they do. Can this offensive line hold their own and just get enough? I don't know. We'll see. That's going to be the key to this game. But you'd be foolish to put this as anything except Alabama.
Yeah, they lost 2 of their 3. They were in that, 3 or 2 guys are gone to the league, both high picks in the NFL draft. But, I mean, they just substitute 5-star after 5-star in there. When you had guys like Deshaun Hand coming in now to get a start, and he was the number 1 overall recruit in 2014. He's in there. Raekwon Davis, all these stars in there. So, yeah, but I do think, and even going back to the other point, I think the one thing about the offensive line we have to make clear, I think setting up holes and getting some push for the running game, they've actually been pretty good. They were pretty good at that last year. You don't have a running back run for 1,700 yards if you're horrible blocking for the run. So I do think they can do some damage that way. But, yeah, it's blocking for the pass is not good. But you're right. This is obviously a pretty significant advantage for an Alabama team.
Flipping over to that other side of the football, that Florida State secondary, that passing attack versus Jalen Hurts throwing the football. They've got some dynamic wide receivers over there at Alabama, but there's still a lot of questions about can Jalen Hurts throw that ball downfield? Can he stretch that field? He's got a lot of good yardage plays by just dinking and dunking and letting his very talented wide receivers do the work. But can you stretch the field against Derwin James? Can you stretch the field against Tavares McFadden? This is a big, big point because turnovers, both of these teams are going to be looking to blink because they don't do it often. That's what's really going to decide this game. And I know that's very much a maddenism to say whoever turns the ball over least is going to win the game. But this is where Florida State, to me, can have an edge. If you can force Hurts to make mistakes, if you can get the ball, set yourself up with decent drives and good field position and get it off turnovers, you can do it here. This is, to me, on defense, the biggest matchup for Florida State. And I think it's also maybe the biggest advantage for Florida State, not because of Alabama's wide receivers, but because their quarterback hasn't proven who he is yet.
Well, obviously, Florida State defensive game plan is going to keep Hurts contained, keep him in that pocket, and make him beat you throwing the ball down the field against what is arguably the number 1 secondary in the country. And I made this point on the War Chant report, which you can watch on warchant.com.
Nice plug.
Yes, I know Ryan put that together. Good show this week, so definitely check it out. But I made the point, if they're able to do that and Jalen Hurts can consistently throw the ball deep, against this defensive segment, then it's over. Alabama's going to win the national championship. They're not going to get pushed. That's the one aspect of their game you're not really so sure that he can do consistently. And if he's able to do that, you tip your cap and you say, great, you're the better team. But right now, even with Calvin Ridley, who's one of the top wide receivers in the country, and that's going to be an intriguing matchup as an aside. What about him and McFadden going? You want to talk about the top corner going against arguably the top receiver in the country. That's going to be fun to watch. But yeah, I think on the whole, there's just too much talent in Florida State secondary. There's too many questions with Jalen Hurts throwing the football.
Drew and I have been talking about this a lot. Alabama seems to have kind of abandoned more the West Coast style with Sark out and, of course, Lane Kiffin going to FAU, and they seem to have gone back to we're going to pound it, and then open up with play action. That seems what this new offense is going to be like. And, well, when you have Bo Scarborough, you can't really complain with that type of logic, I would say. Front seven for Florida State's really, really good. Running game for Alabama is where they've made their bread and butter over the last decade. This is going to be one of the more fun matchups to watch on Saturday.
This is definitely a rock meets hard place type of scenario here because you got FSU traditionally so good against the run, especially a pro-style team that likes to pound it. You just can't do that against Florida State. When you're trying to pound against Derek Nottie and Christmas and those veteran linebackers, we'll see how much Matthew Thomas plays in the game, but it's a great matchup to watch right there. That's why I don't think you can give really either side an advantage because Florida State's so good against the run. They've got all those players back. Alabama, Bo Scarborough, Damian Harris, it goes on, Jacobs, on and all of the great running backs they have. But they do have to replace two starters on the offensive line. We'll get to that in a minute. Another one's moved from one tackle to the other. So there's a little bit of uncertainty in that first game. So maybe they're not on the same page as much as they will be later in the season.
Drew, how you see that one shaken? I'm interested on your thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's actually huge to have Matthew Thomas back, obviously. Him being the number one run-stopping linebacker in the ACC. Florida State's obviously, like you guys said, front seven is stout. But at the end of the day, you got to tip your cap to Alabama. Alabama's going to Alabama a lot of the time. And as good as I think Florida State's front seven and our defense is, I have a hard time believing we'll be able to completely shut that down. Bo Scarborough, is just he's too good. But I do expect Florida State to be able to keep it to damage control, if you will. I don't think it'll be something that'll be overpowering.
And, you bring up Matthew Thomas. He's going to be a good linchpin in that defense. But at the same time, and we mentioned it on yesterday's show, if you've practiced two practices and you're about to play the number one team in the country, whose bread and butter for the better part of 10 years has been this, how are you going to look? I mean, he's an athletic freak, but how do you look against as tough a test as you could have week one on Saturday?
Well, I actually talked to somebody who I trust close to football, and he really thought that because he's a senior, because he's been through so much, and apparently he stayed in shape, and I was told he was able to watch film and all that. So it really comes down to being able to tackle. He hasn't had contact for 3 weeks. But I've been told because of what he's done, going through the spring, everything else, that they think he'll be fine. Now, will he start? I don't know, but I think maybe we're overplaying a bit because he's been in contact now for 5 years in this program that it's going to be that big of a deal.
All right, we wrap it up with offensive line versus Florida State's defensive line. Alabama, maybe not as deeply as Florida State, but has also had some questions on their front five as well. Florida State, just like Alabama, has a very stout defensive line. This has kind of been their bread and butter on their defense, especially since Brad Lawing has come to town a couple years ago. I like Florida State here, and I think it's, once again, this is going to be a key one. It ties straight back to that passing game versus that secondary, affecting Jalen Hurts mentally, making him make mistakes. This is a key place where you can do this.
Yeah, I think this is where Florida State has that depth advantage on the defensive line. They come at you in waves, the amount of strength up there. And like I said, there is some uncertainty. They've only got two full-time starters, the center and one of the guards that are back from last season. Everyone else is either new or they've had to shift to another position. Now, they're very talented. They're big. We know Alabama's always going to have that hulking offensive line. But I think in that first game, there's going to be some uncertainty there. And you're going up against, I've seen different ratings, but without a doubt, it's one of the top 5 defensive lines in the country. So I think that's going to put a lot of pressure on that. So I think FSU has the advantage here, and they better have the advantage here. If Alabama's able to push that defensive front line, FSU's going to be in for a long night.
I tend to agree with that. On the other hand, special teams is about the only thing that I would say here. Man, Florida State's got a question mark, but Alabama, you consistently, the Achilles heel, the reason that you don't have FSU Alabama in 2013, special teams. It's been a thorn in Nick Saban's side for, once again, the better part of a decade. It's amazing the consistent greatness at just about everywhere else and the consistent head scratchers that Alabama's had here. Ricky Aguayo maybe isn't perfect, but you like what he can do. Logan Tyler has looked better in practice. Ira and I talked about that a couple days ago, that his leg, if he can just get that hang time together, is really, really talented. We'll see about the return
And that could
game.
be huge in this game. I think the special teams and the field position, those hidden yards, as Jimbo Fisher likes to call it, is going to be so big in this game. And that's you're right. If Logan Tyler can have a big game, boy, that'll be huge.
Yeah, I'm interested to see that as well. We got some picks to go. That was fast. This has been a fast show. We got to make some picks, play some over-unders, and we'll do that right after this. It's Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
WarChant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. WarChant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WarChant30. That's WarChant30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WarChant30. WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.
Welcome back to Wake Up War Chant 97.9 ESPN Radio, brought to you by your friends at For the Table, Madison Social, Central Allen Township, all there in the heart of College Town. Ryan Kelly, Drew Hicken, Gene Williams, the boss man sitting in with us today. And it's football season, which means over-unders are back. It's year 3 in the War Chant Radio / Wake Up War Chant era, so I guess you can call over-under a weekly tradition now. It's been long enough. So basically, for those of you who don't know how we play this, Gene comes up and I guess is a very smart booker here, and what he does is he's able to
set the lines.
He sets our lines for us, gives us some fun little prop bets during these games, and this is an interesting one. Because it's not your typical opener, so I'm interested to see what you've got. Lay 'em on me.
Yeah, this is, first of all, opener, you still don't know. There's so many question marks, and that's part of the fun later. We're going to do picks here in a little bit. So you just don't know on teams. That first game, it's really a lot of guesswork. But, yeah, when you're playing, obviously, a 1 versus 3, you got 2 heavyweights knocking it out here. So, yeah, I went through a lot of interesting little things people talk about during the game, what's going to play out. So let's start this off with number 1. We talked about it in the last segment. Alabama's ability to run the football against Florida State's pretty stout defense there. So I set the over-under on Alabama total rushing yards at 175. This is a team that averaged about 250 a year last year on the ground. And to me, the biggest key is I think FSU holds their tailbacks to well under that total, but it is what will Jalen Hurts, how much will he bring to the table? He can run 100 yards himself in a game.
I would tend to think it's around 150 or so. I think FSU's front seven stout enough. I'll play with the under here. Drew, what do you think?
I'm going to go over just for the exact reason that Gene just brought up. I think Jalen Hurts thrown in with Scarborough and Dameon Pierce. I just think it's probably, I think 175 it's going to be a little bit more than that.
All right, what we got next?
I'll go slightly under that. I'm kind of agree with you on that. And I think they're in trouble. I think if they could maybe pull it off around that number, but I think if it goes over 200, then FSU's pretty much screwed.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go Florida State rushing yards on the other side now. Like obviously going against a really tough defense in Alabama that's been averaged 64 yards a game they gave up on the ground last year. So I'm going to set that line right at the century mark at 100.
I'll play it slightly over. I know that's against the trend with Alabama, but I think Florida State, for the same reason you guys mentioned, DeAndre Francois comes into play here a big bit. How much does he get rushed? Mm-hmm. And also the idea that we're going to see Florida State, or at least we think we are, go back to a running back by committee type standard. We're going to see a lot of fresh legs. It wouldn't surprise us if we see Amir Rasul in this game, and if he gets a corner, he's quick enough to maybe eat up some chunks of yards. So I like Florida State slightly over in this game. Jacquez Patrick doing the heavy lifting, but take a look out for some of those backup backs and DeAndre Francois.
We think, Drew?
I also think over here. Yeah. I think when you got the quarterback runs as well, same kind of thing as Hurts, like you guys said. I expect over here.
Yeah, I think Francois probably runs for about 50 in this. So, yeah, I think the tailbacks at least go first. So, slightly over 100. Next one, we're going to do, going back to the same thing, how many, not just runs, but called runs, design running plays that Jimbo Fisher calls for DeAndre Francois. We know it's going to be higher than normal when he really needs those big yards in that play. And Alabama's been, a little vulnerable to this. I said it pretty high at 9 called runs for Francois.
I think it's a little bit under, but I do think the number's high. I think it's around 7 or so is what I end up saying. And also, look out for something that Florida State has not run a lot over the last couple of years, especially since the Winston era. Maybe something that was a little bit more Ponder EJ back.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew we were going with that.
Speed option, yes, sir, off the edge.
I like that.
Nobody was better at running that than Christian Ponder.
No.
I know I sound like the old man in the room when I say that, but man, that kid had some wheels when he needed to.
And I do think Jimbo's going to pull out the kitchen sink here, so I think he'll be pretty close. I'm tempted to go a push on this, but I'll go just slightly under on that. What do you got, Drew?
I'm going to go slightly under as well. I do think that obviously Alabama's had some issues with some mobile quarterbacks, so I think the quarterback run is going to be high, but I think 9's a little too much.
All right, let's go to passing yards. Also, DeAndre Francois set it at 325 yards. That's a lot of yards against a really good defense. But again, as we pointed out last segment, Alabama a little vulnerable sometimes to a competent quarterback who can throw the ball vertically.
I think it's a little over. I'm with you here. I'm with you here. 325. You mentioned it. So many folks have been able to sling it. That's a really good number. And I kind of kicked back and forth when I first saw that. But I think you get enough big chunk plays down the field to get that done. Just enough. I don't think it's a big over. I don't think they go for 400 yards like we mentioned other quarterbacks have done in the past. But I think Florida State's able to go just a little bit over this.
What do you think, Drew?
This feels a lot to me like the Alabama rushing total. You feel like it's in that ballpark of what they need to win the football game, and I feel like it's going to be right there. It's really hard for me to say just because I'm going to pick Florida State to win the game. Spoiler: I'm going to go over just because I think Florida State. I think you have to stretch the field to beat them. I think you have to throw for at least 300 yards.
I'm going to go just under. Yeah, I still think they can win around 300 yards, maybe just around that ballpark. It's very efficient, good in the red zone, gets them enough to get the job done. Now let's go to interesting. I'd put this out there. We always used to pick a receiver. At Bobo Wilson the last couple of years, we always do the over-under on receptions. We got to pass the torch.
And it was always about straight at 5.
Yeah, he was pretty good at that last year. I think he went over until he got hurt. Let's go with it. But I'm going to go with Keith Gavin. I'm finding this interesting because the guy had no receptions last year at all, the entire season. But he's a guy who's been the number one receiver reportedly in camp and in scrimmages. So I'm going to set it a little bit low because he's never had a reception before. I'm going to put 4 at the over-under on that.
If he's as good as they say he's been in fall camp, and he's as fresh, and teams don't have film on him, Jimbo Fisher is going to use every little bit of secret that he can to his advantage. And if that's the case, Keith Gavin gets more than 4 receptions in this game. I think it's around 5.
Drew?
Are we allowed to pick push?
Yes, you can pick push.
Okay, so if we can pick push, I'm going to put it right at 4. I think it's going to be 4.
Yeah, I'm tempted to do a push. I'll go ahead and go 5. I'll go just over that total, but I think about a push would be about right. If it goes over, it's a good sign because I think when he catches the ball, it's going to be for big plays. I don't think he's your little underneath dink and dunk guy. He's your guy down the field. He's big, he's physical, he's fast. So if it's over 4, that's great. Tackles for Derwin James, 12. Makes his return after almost 2 years.
Derwin James playing in his first real football game at a neutral site against a quality opponent in 2 years. You mentioned it. 12 tackles. I think it's just a little much. I'm playing under.
But he's going to be flying all over.
It's going to be double digits. It's going to be about 10 or so, but I think it's a little under.
This may sound weak, but I'm going to go push again. I think 12 is about right where it's at. And maybe, I'll go a little over just to do it. I think 12, 13, I think it'll be right around there.
Right. I'll go. I'd say probably under, but man, this is the kind of game he's going to want to shine in. He's back, and they're going to put him all over the field. I could see him having like crazy 14, 15 tackles, but I'll just play the odds and go under. Logan Tyler, punting average. Love to go with that. We're going to go with 43 as the punting average.
Let's go over. I stuck my neck out.
Really? Big into Logan.
I stuck my neck out for Logan Tyler on yesterday's show talking to Ira. We know he's got the leg. The couple times that we were able to see punting drills in practice, he looked really, really good. But the thing is, he did last camp.
Yeah.
That being said, you're going to need this to win the game.
Yeah, you do.
You and I both talked about this. Field position's going to come at a premium for Florida State. He can be a big X factor this game. Year 1 to year 2, you cross your fingers. Don't let me down, LT. I'm saying over.
Yeah, I'm gonna go under. I'll believe it when I. I'll believe it when I see it.
It's a fair point.
I'll believe it when I see it.
But I'm stuck on this train now.
I'm with you, Drew. I'm with you. It's just been so many games in a row where he's just underachieved. I got to go under. And I have very positive reports from camp. You think it's his second year. He's matured. It's a neutral site. The elements should be pretty good for him. You see a lot of punters, they get in that kind of a little more controlled environment. They pump pretty well. But man, like Drew said, man, I got to see it to believe it. All right. We're almost wrapping this up. Number of non-offensive touchdowns in the game. Remember, Alabama led the nation with 12 non-offensive touchdowns. That's special teams or defense. Total for both teams, 1, saying that is at least one team has a non-offensive touchdown in this game.
I'm pushing it here. I think it's 1 exactly. And I think whoever gets it's probably winning this football game.
That's exactly what I was going to say. We've talked about it so many times on this show. It's going to be the play that nobody expects that turns this in a different in a direction that a team can win the game.
I think if FSU could make their choice in this, well, obviously they'd want to have that 1 or more. But I think if they could go in and say, we'll just have under and none, they would take it because Alabama feeds off of teams. They win so many games by being able to get these non-traditional touchdowns. So but I agree with you. The odds are with these two explosive teams, someone's going to have a big play somewhere. So I think it's a push as well. Last thing, total points. We'll just go with the official over-under right now. It's 49 total points in this game.
I think it's 27-24 either way, so I guess that puts me right over.
Yeah.
I was going to go 27-23, so right over for me too.
Yeah, I think I like the over in this. You're almost saying one of the teams is almost going to have to get in the teens. I just think there's too much offensive talent to keep it down that much.
And that's fair. We'll find out. It's time to pick. It's time for the return of Lucky 7.
Now you have to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky?
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
I need to feel you, Jerry! Show me the money! Jerry, you better yell! Show me the money!
And you know how Lucky 7 works. We take our 7 favorite spreads of the week. We pick against them. And I think we're going to be keeping tabs this year. We haven't exactly done that over the last couple of years, but we're going to be keeping a little bit of score this year because it's not worth winning if you can't win big, folks. So let's go ahead and hit this thing. We'll start it with Purdue, actually. That's where Louisville's opening their season on the road against the Boilermakers. They're given 25. That's a big number. I think it's probably around 24. I think it's slightly under.
Really? I just think...
on the road, that's a...
Yeah, I think Lamar Jackson's going to do this first game. I think he comes out of the gate strong. Purdue just so they're bad and they're slow. I just think this is the kind of team Louisville's going to match up with. It's a lot of points, man. I'm going to go with the Cardinals on this.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Cardinals as well, just because I think they're itching to get back. The way they finished last season has got to left a sour taste in their mouth. I think Lamar Jackson's going to get off to a hot start. I'm going to agree. I'm going to go Louisville.
All right. I'm just saying, Kentucky's pretty sorry too. That's all I'm saying. Cal Berkeley's going on the road to Kenan Stadium at Chapel Hill, North Carolina, where the Tar Heels are a 12-point favorite. West Coast trip. Cal's not what they were. I like Sonny Dykes as a coach. I think he's turned them into a decent program, but they just don't have the pieces. The Tar Heels like to run people out of the joint when they can. Give me the Heels and give me the 12 points.
No Trubisky anymore. I don't know, opening game. Some of these teams in the ACC traditionally kind of stumble. It's a lot of points.
I think West Coast trip.
Yeah, I know. North Carolina's going to win. I just don't like 12. That's too many points. I'll take the under on that. I'll take California.
Yeah, I agree. Too many points. 12's a lot of points. I'm going to go with Cal. I don't know a ton about Cal, so I'm not going to sit here and act like I do, but I'm going to go with them.
South Carolina at NC State. I got a couple corrections yesterday. I'm just so used to South Carolina playing that opening
Thursday.
When
you said that on yesterday's show, I was excited because I was like, oh, great, that's another good game to watch on Thursday.
I'm so used to this. Seems like a game that should be played on Thursday night, but it's not. It's going to be played in Charlotte at Bank of America Stadium. The Cox and the Wolfpack 5-point favorites in this game. A lot of folks like that NC State team. I don't know how much I love them, but I know I like them better than South Carolina. I also know that South Carolina just kind of has a penchant for winning these opening games. So that being said, I might be stupid here, but I'm going to roll with the Pack. I think they're going to win the game. This is going to be a good, bad game. This is going to be close and ugly. But I'll take the Pack by the slimmest of marches. I think it's about a 5-6 point game.
You got to go with the Whoop. But they got Dave Doran, man. He's one of the top coaches in the country. So let's go with him there. He's going to roll all over the Gamecocks.
All right, Drew, what say you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with NC State too. I think Muschamp, the quarterback killer, they're not gonna have much offense over there. I'm gonna take the Wolfpack.
All right, Michigan and Florida, well, what's left of Florida, are going to play in Dallas, Texas. Michigan was a 4-point favorite. This line's probably moved about 6 ways to Sunday by the time that this is going to hit
anybody left on.
And if there's any more suspensions today, which there's reports that those might be coming, might be there. I mean, how do you not pick Michigan in this game? Listen, I get it. You're both breaking in new players. Michigan's replacing every starter on defense, but Florida's without their consistent guy in Jordan Scarlett. I've got to take the Wolverines.
That was the one that pushed me over the edge. Actually, again, if you watch the War Chant report,
you picked Florida.
I was kind of that, but now the Scarlet's done. That's just too much, and there could be more. I'm going to go with Michigan at this point. So go ahead.
Yeah, before the suspensions, I really thought that Florida had a good shot in this game, but now, I'm going to go Michigan as well.
All right, here's my upset. West Virginia and Virginia Tech are going to play in Landover, Maryland. Virginia Tech's a 4.5-point favorite. Will Greer is making his debut for the West Virginia Mountaineers.
Steroid.
Holgerson with another year to be kind of sort of on the hot seat, but not really. Virginia Tech's going to be breaking in a new quarterback too, but not as experienced as Greer. I like the Mountaineers in this game. Hail West Virginia.
If Greer's juicing again, they're definitely going to win. But I'll go with them. Yeah, I'm with you there. I think Virginia Tech will be pretty good, but I think that they're going to get better and better as the season goes on. Good time to catch them for West Virginia, so go ahead and give me them.
Yeah, I'll go with West Virginia as well. I think Will Greer is going to be the deciding factor here. Like you said, the experience, what Virginia Tech doesn't have behind center, so we'll go West Virginia.
All right, so you got the main course first in Atlanta on Saturday, and then somehow you get the appetizer on Monday. It's Tennessee and Georgia Tech playing in the second Chick-fil-A kickoff game. The Vols are giving 3 points to Georgia Tech. And I know you made the point on the Man Cave show, that's a long time to prepare for the triple option. But when you look at how many bowl games over the last couple of years Paul Johnson's been able to win, he's got enough wrinkles.
And usually against the SEC.
And you mentioned it. This is a year where this is a make-or-break year for Paul Johnson. He kind of saved himself at the end of last year, but this is a new athletic director who did not hire Paul, and he'd kind of like to maybe move on and get his guys sooner rather than later. This is a big year. This is a big game for both of these guys.
Paul's such a gregarious guy. Everybody loves Paul, don't they? Ira, are you out there?
I've got the Bees to win outright in this one. I think it's a good game, though.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Go ahead and give me the Jackets in this to beat the SEC. I don't particularly like either of these teams, but we'll go ahead with them.
Give me the champions of life. We'll go with the champions of life with
Sir,
this one.
NC State is the current reigning champions of life. They won that bowl game. I'm pretty sure that's how that title goes. That's how that works. All right, finally, we get to our game, Florida State and Alabama. Those of you who've listened to the show, you kind of know my thoughts. This is a good game. Florida State can win this game. There's a good chance Florida State wins this game. But I just think you can't pick against the consistency that Alabama's had. Florida State's going to cover this 7, but I think they lose a game 27-24.
No, as I mentioned in the War Chant report, FSU's going to win this outright. And part of it is I've just seen the confidence out of Jimbo Fisher. He seems ultra confident the last couple of weeks. Things have gone the way he's wanted to in camp. Relatively healthy. You've got Matthew Thomas back. You've got the better quarterback. I think some key areas people aren't talking about. Alabama's got to replace both of their fronts. And I think these guys are going to be really good. But we just automatically assume you plug in a 5-star, they're going to be as good as their guy. They will be as good, but I don't know in game 1. Florida State has more experience up front. So I'm going to go with the Noles by 3 in this one.
You bring up the fronts, and I think especially in game 1, cohesion is such a big deal. I think maybe that's something that's going to hurt Alabama a little bit, at least I hope. I think 7 points for Bama is too much. I'm also going to pick Florida State to win the game 27-23. And, so
I like it.
All right. Well, we're going to find out one way or another on Saturday, gentlemen. My thanks to both of you. My thanks to you guys for listening. Go Noles. We'll talk to you Monday. Mike and Mike's up next on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Hey, thanks for downloading today's show. If you haven't already, why don't you rate and subscribe us? We certainly do appreciate it, and of course, we appreciate you listening anyway, so just go ahead and click that right there. You know you want to. Come on. Come on. Thanks again for letting us do the show. We love giving you all the football, basketball, baseball, recruiting, all year round. Not just football season, not just spring practice, but hopefully giving you the freshest and newest FSU content every day. Thanks, guys.